It is Monday, Gimel Nisan Tovshin Ches. We are in Teres Menachem, Sefer Mamar Tovshin Yud Gimel, the Mamar of the first night of Shavuos, Tovshin Yud Gimel, the Shehikdimu. We are on page Kuf Samach Beis. We are on the second line from the top. We're at the word V'chein. The Rebbe is speaking here about how one begins Avodas Hashem, one begins to serve Hashem. That the first stage of serving Hashem is Kabbalas Oil, accepting the yoke of Hashem, and not seeking to attain any levels. And to use a metaphor for that, he used the metaphor of steps versus a ramp. Because concerning the altar, it says that one should not ascend the altar on steps, but rather on a ramp. The altar representing the place to where, in the spiritual sense, souls rise as they go on in their service of Hashem. So the first step is to go up to the altar. You begin going up on a ramp. The difference being that a ramp is easier to ascend than steps. And the Rebbe said it was a gradual gradient, incline, the ramp that was used for the altar, because it was 32 cubits long and 10 hand widths high. So it was less than 1 to 3. So now the Rebbe goes on and brings another example of a ramp. Second line from the top, page Kuf Samach Beis, the second word on the line. V'chein hu hadin le'inyan Shabbos, so too is the din, the halacha, the law concerning Shabbos. Concerning Shabbos, the din is, the law is, that we're not allowed to move an object from a public domain to a private domain, or vice versa. Right? What constitutes a private domain? If you have an area that is 10 cubits high, right? A minimum of 10 cubits high, then that constitutes a separate domain. If there's something which is fenced off with a fence of 10 cubits, not 10 cubits, 10 hand widths high, an area fenced off by a fence that is 10 hand widths high is considered a separate domain. So concerning Shabbos, so in other words, if somebody would, as it were, throw an object from outside this fenced off area into the fenced off area, that would constitute moving an object from a public domain to a private domain. What happens if there's an incline? So the Talmud says in Shabbos, Shetel shehu mishupa v'helech umislaket begavei ma'at ma'at, a mound that is on an angle. It is on an incline, so it starts low and it continues to go high.
No, vice versa.
Well, it depends which way you're looking at, from the bottom up or from the top down, right? So im mislaket asorat tfachim et hiluch hey ames shehem shleishim tfachim harei hu kirishus rabin gemura. If it ends up being 10 fistfuls, hand widths high, within 5 cubits, which means 30 tfachim, 30 hand widths, then it's like a complete Rishus Rabim. It's considered like a public domain. It's not, doesn't constitute a private domain. Because it's easy to go up this incline. Let me just translate it to you in English, the exact Talmud. The Talmud says, in the case of a mound that is an inclined plane that gradually attains a height of 10 hand breadths over a horizontal space of 4 cubits, and one threw an object from the public domain and it came to rest atop that mound, he is liable because it's considered a partition. So in other words, if it's over 4 cubits, if the incline reaches 10 hand breadths, tvachim, high, over an expanse of more than 4 amas, more than 4 cubits, then it's still considered the Rishus Rabbim. It's still considered as part of the Rishus Rabbim, right? So in other words, you have a public domain, a Rishus Rabbim, and in the middle there's an incline. So as long as, and at the highest point, this incline is a minimum of 10 tvachim, 10 handbreadths. So depending on the span of the area,
At the lowest point.
the highest point.
But you try
10
to say that what it was a Rishus
Rishus Rabbim,
a
flat.
Rabbim. But if it's higher than that,
Then that would be
it
cast
becomes a
Rishus
Rishus
Yachid.
Yachid. So it's correct. So anything higher. If it's-
10 tvachim and up. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Provided that it is 10 tvachim, 10 handbreadths, within a span of not more than 4 amas, 4 cubits. If it is 10 tvachim, if the point of 10 tvachim, 10 handbreadths, is beyond 4 amas span, then it's part of the Rishus Rabbim.
What's it? So 10 to 4 and 4 amos is what ratio?
Well, an amma is 6 tvachim.
That's not or 8.
6 tvachim.
Is it almost 6?
So it's
Okay.
4 times 6 is 24. 24, not more than 24 tvachim span by 10 tvachim high.
There's 1 to 2.4.
Is it?
Well, you say 10 and 24.
Correct.
So it's 1 to 2.4.
1.2, yeah, exactly. 1 to 2.4, yeah. Up to that. Anything beyond that is considered a Rishus Rabbim. Why? Because the incline,
Right.
because the incline is more gradual. So the point that Rebbe makes is that a ramp is easier to ascend than steps. That's the point that Rebbe is saying. To such an extent that if the incline is not as steep as you say, 1 by 2.4, right? Then it's still considered part of the original domain, even according to halacha. It has a practical difference. It could be a difference between transgressing a prohibition, a biblical prohibition, or not. What's the point? In other words, when we start our Avodas Hashem, we start by going up a ramp rather than going upstairs. Meaning to say, we don't pay attention to the different levels that there are in serving Hashem, right? We begin this movement by using a ramp. What does it mean in terms of the difference between the revelations from above? What's the difference between a ramp and steps? Says the Rebbe, the difference between steps and a ramp in the revelations from above, it is the difference between Hashem's immanent divine energy and Hashem's transcendent divine energy. The difference between the divine energy from above that clothes itself in worlds and the divine energy that hovers and transcends worlds. The idea of steps, why are the differences in levels, distinct differences in levels? That is as a result of the immanent divine energy. Sheyesh b'his chalkus, which has within it separation and differences. The Seder Hishtalshlus from the chain order of creation. So all those levels are the levels of the chain order of creation are distinct and obvious and noticeable and present. Because when we talk about the divine energy that fills worlds, that clothes itself in worlds, then obviously the divine energy that is present in one realm, in one world, at one level, is different than the one that is present in another realm, at a different level. Similar to the difference in the anatomy of the human being between the head, the body, and the foot. Right? So the part of the soul that clothes itself on the head is obviously at a higher level than the part of the soul that clothes itself in the body and in the leg and the feet. Whereas the idea of the ramp results from or represents the transcendent divine energy, which is present below, just as above. So we're talking about a ramp, obviously, that has such a gradual incline, where it is easy to rise. And that represents the idea of the transcendent divine energy, where there is no, or a less noticeable, or no difference between the higher and the lower and the higher. But it's just that this transcendent divine energy is in a state of concealment. The Ha'aliyah, what is the idea of ascending this ramp? It's the idea of revealing that which is concealed. But we cannot associate it with a multitude of levels. Because it's present below, just as it is above. What is their idea in serving Hashem? Steps denotes the ascent from in an orderly fashion from a lower level to a higher level. Beginning from the beginning of the davening. The blessings of carrying on with the verses of praise, of song, blessings of the Shema and Shemana Esra, the Amidah. One starts off in a manner of being inanimate, the lowest of the four aspects that make up creation. Then he moves on to be in the level of the vegetable, ascending to the living until to the human. This is not the case when we talk about a ramp. It represents an ascent not in an orderly stage from one step to another. Rather, he serves Hashem from a sense of acceptance of his yoke, without paying attention to his levels or his situation and condition, but rather begins the Avodah as a result of accepting Hashem's yoke, and therefore, as the Rebbe mentioned before, it's the idea of running away from the negative and just getting to it straight away. Carry Mitzvah on tomorrow, Mitzvah. You'll be here tomorrow.
Tuesday,
Huh?
yeah.
Carry Mitzvah.